Welcome to today's Explainer podcast. Look, if you've ever found yourself totally tangled up in the complexities of tax law, especially when we're talking about trading futures and options, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're taking a really fascinating journey. We are going to unpack the incredibly complex reality of modern tax law, but we're going to do it in kind of an unexpected way. We're going to walk right through the doors of a childhood shop. It's a story of how the very old world of physical goods perfectly maps onto the invisible digital contracts we trade today. So grab your focus because this is literally going to change how you look at your tax returns forever.
Okay, I want you to immediately immerse yourself in this scene. Quote, a rickshaw bell, someone bargaining over the price of brinjal, a scooter horn that never seems to stop. Just imagine the chaotic, vibrant, sensory overload of a morning bazaar. It's not just one sound, right? It's 100 sounds all fighting each other. And this isn't just poetry. This is the literal environment where our author and our whole story begins, waking up to that noise every single day because their father's shop sat right smack in the middle of it. This sensory memory, it's the foundation, the metaphorical bridge we are going to use to actually understand derivatives.
You can almost feel the visceral reality of that father's shop, the heavy scent of mustard oil mixing with fresh paper, a young boy sitting on a wooden bench, literally learning to count coins long before he learned math in a classroom. But perhaps most importantly, consider the quiet ceremony of selling cinnamon. The father would take this cinnamon and tightly wrap it in pieces of old newspaper. To the young boy watching, it felt like something incredibly powerful was hidden inside those little bundles. It wasn't just a transaction. It was a silent, deeply respected exchange. This was the author's very first lesson in what business actually meant.
And this brilliantly illustrates a really profound psychological and cultural concept. Science calls it state-dependent memory. The way a specific smell or the creak of a shutter pulls you right back to the exact moment you first learned something. But the old scriptures, they have a much deeper word for it, samskara. It's a mental imprint laid down so early in life that it quietly shapes every choice that comes after it, often without you even realizing it's happening. The mind never really leaves that first classroom it was raised in. And for our author, that classroom was the shop. So, fast forward decades later. The author is sitting on the exact same stool in the exact same spot where the father's shop stood. But the shelves are empty. There isn't a single physical item in the room. And yet, business is happening every single day. This brings up a really profound question. What am I actually selling here? It's a question that kept tapping the author on the shoulder for years as they traded digital contracts. Because without a physical packet of sugar or a newspaper wrap of cinnamon to hand over, the fundamental nature of the transaction just felt entirely different.
Look at this stark contrast here. On one hand, you have the father's inventory, tangible, hold-in-your-hand items like rice, bundles of pencils, and those mysterious cinnamon wraps. On the other hand, the author's inventory, nifty lots, option premiums, and crypto derivatives traded on exchanges like Delta. You open a position, you close a position. The whole shebang is entirely digital, completely invisible. The cognitive dissonance is huge. How do you reconcile a childhood defined by physical trade with an adulthood defined by numbers just flashing on a screen?
Which leads us directly to the central tax dilemma of our explainer. When you are just clicking buttons to open and close positions, sometimes winning, sometimes losing, where does this actually sit in the eyes of the tax department? I mean, does it feel like capital gains, like selling a piece of property or a stock you've held forever? Or is it something else entirely? Is it actually closer to what the father was doing all along in that bustling bazaar? Part 1, the legal reality. Section 43.5.
Okay, let's dive into this because this is where the confusion clears up and the incredible machinery of the Income Tax Act really reveals itself. We are moving from the philosophical bridge of childhood memories straight into the hard legal reality. Section 43.5 contains two small, very quiet provisos, clauses D and E, that draw a massive line in the sand. They explicitly state the trading and derivatives of securities or commodities on a recognized stock exchange is not speculative. Just let that sink in for a second. The law absolutely refuses to view derivative trading as a speculative side bet or a gamble. There is no gray area here. The taxman looks at this purely digital activity and makes a very deliberate categorization.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is this. F&O trading isn't capital gains. The moment the law strips away that speculative label, your trading is treated exactly like the father's physical shop. It is an ordinary business. It is perfectly capable of generating an ordinary business profit or an ordinary business loss. Whether your inventory is a heavy sack of rice or a nifty options contract, The Income Tax Act views the fundamental nature of the enterprise as totally identical.
Part 2. The math. Turnover versus profits.
Now, treating F&O as a business means you have to speak the language of business accounting. And here is where we need to put up a massive, flashing warning sign. Mixing up turnover and profit is a small mistake with a very, very big consequence. They are not the same number, just described differently. Here is the highly counterintuitive and honestly kind of crazy way F&O turnover is calculated. It's built from just 3 things. First, the absolute difference of your trades, meaning if you make a profit of 100 or a loss of 100, both add 100 to your turnover. Positive or negative doesn't matter, the absolute numbers just get piled up. Second, if you sell options, the collected premium joins the pile completely regardless of the trade's final outcome. And third, any reversals of positions get added in too. Now, do you notice what is completely missing here? Expenses. Turnover, in the wild world of F&O, has absolutely nothing to do with your expenses. So you might be wondering, why does this strange Frankenstein number even exist? Well, turnover exists for one job and one job only. It is a behind-the-scenes metric used purely to check thresholds. It exists literally just to tell you if your trading activity is massive enough to trigger a mandatory tax audit or to see if you qualify for presumptive taxation under Section 44 AD. It is the tax department's tripwire. That is its one and only purpose. Now contrast that weird turnover figure with your actual profit and loss. This calculation is probably way more familiar to you. You take your total gains, minus your total losses, and, crucially, minus your genuine business expenses. We are talking about brokerage fees, securities transaction tax, cess, your internet costs, the real, everyday cost of doing business live right here. And here's the kicker. These expenses never touch the turnover figure we just talked about. If you accidentally folded your expenses into your turnover calculation, you would understate the exact number meant to tell you if you need an audit.
Part 3. The final balance. So, once you have successfully navigated the bizarre math of turnover and correctly calculated your true profit and loss, where does this actually live on your tax return? Where does the dust finally settle? Well, if your net result for the year is a loss, it doesn't just vanish into thin air. It sits right on your balance sheet under current assets as a debit balance of the profit and loss account. Conversely, if you had a stellar year and generated a net profit, it sits on the other side, under current liabilities as a credit balance. Only this final ultimate gain or loss figure goes into your return. Your massive turnover number, it stays entirely behind the scenes. It never, ever enters the profit and loss schedule. And this brings us right back full circle, back over our metaphorical bridge. Because when you strip away the glowing screens, all the tricky math, and the heavy jargon, the law was never really asking, did a physical item change hands? It doesn't care that there are no shelves in the shop anymore. The law is simply asking, is this your business, done with intention, done for profit? The moment your answer is yes, you are bound by the exact same rules and granted the exact same business treatments as the man selling cinnamon in the bazaar. I want to leave you with this final, truly poignant realization from our source text. Quote, "The shop never really stopped being what it always was. Only what it sells has changed." Whether you are wrapping spices in old newspaper or executing high-frequency crypto derivatives, the intention, the samskara of business, remains totally identical in the eyes of the law. So the next time you sit down to calculate your F&O taxes, I want you to ask yourself, what invisible inventory are you organizing today? And how well do you truly understand the rules of your own shop? Thank you so much for joining this Explainer podcast. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will see you next time.